The Book of Destiny. Translation of Kitab-ul-Taqdeer. Author: Ghulam Ahmed Parwez. Translated by Dr. Ejaz Rasool. Glasgow, UK. ISBN number 9798884207042. 5. Chapter 5, Troubles and Hardships. These kinds of events keep appearing before you on a daily basis. For example, 1. If an invalid recovers, then his relations will declare with great pride and joy that we went to great lengths for his treatment. We had him treated by such and such a physician, consulted with such and such a specialist. He ultimately recovered by using such and such a medicine. But if that patient dies, then it will be said that we made great efforts from our side, we left no stone unturned in his treatment, but Allah wished it to be like this. What can we do? No one can question him. 2. If a son is successful in his examination, then this will be the fruit of his efforts, but if he fails, then it will be said that he made great efforts from his side, but Allah wished it to be so. 3. If there is success in a court case, then this will be declared to be the outcome of one's own good planning and the hard work and expertise of a lawyer. But if there is failure in this, then breathing a deep sigh, it will be said that Allah simply wished it to be like this. 4. So much so, that if a boy is born to someone, then there will be a celebration at this, and if 2 or 3 girls are born into a household one after another, then the mother of the girl will be consoled by saying, "Ah well, sister. Have patience, this was just the will of Allah for it to be so, how can anyone have any influence in this matter?" 5.1. Success owes to one's own effort, failure is due to the will of Allah. In other words, in the case of defeat and failure, man considers himself to be constrained and attributes such events to the will of Allah, but in the case of successes and achievements he does not view himself to be constrained, he declares these to be the outcome of his own skill and expertise. We have seen at the beginning that when man, in his era of infancy, found himself to be helpless against his unfavorable circumstances, he conceived the idea of some supernatural power. Therefore, to consider oneself to be constrained in a situation of defeat and failure, and to relate difficulties and hardships to Allah, are vestiges of these same initial imprints on the human mind which religion has kept alive, and which continue to obtain validation from such holy aphorisms as "I recognized Allah through the failures of my schemes." And since pain and sorrow, grief and anguish, are the lifeblood of the poetry of the East, therefore poets add even more poison to these kinds of beliefs by averring that the one for whom hardship is an unknown, who is not a victim of pain and anguish, on whom a hard time has never descended, who has never awoken repeatedly weeping in the night, he does not know what a supplication means. What does he know what Allah is? After that, Tasawwuf then added such colors in it that this ideology became an established reality. Let us now see what the Deen of Allah declares in this respect. 5.2 Meaning of hardship. Musibatan is a word in the Arabic language whose root word is sdwb. The fundamental meaning of this root is for something to descend and by descending to reach its destination. From this aspect every event or incident will be called musibat, hardship. But in the Quran this word, musibatan, has appeared as the opposite of hasanatun, good. 9:50. Hence its meaning is generally used for an unpleasant occurrence. The question is, do hardships and difficulties, unpleasant occurrences, appear from the direction of Allah, or are these the outcomes of the deeds of man himself, individual or collective? The Quran provides an answer to this question with great transparency. 5.3 Hardships are the outcome of one's own deeds. It is noted in Surah Al-Shura that whatever the hardship that descends on you, it is the outcome of your own deeds. 42:30. In Surah Al-Imran it is stated that when some hardship descends on them, they say, How did this happen? Who is responsible for this? The answer came. Say to them. This is brought about by your own self, no one else is responsible for it, you yourself are responsible. 3:165. It is stated in Surah An-Nahl. Their own evil deeds became hardships and appeared before them. 1634. 5.4. Period of respite. The procedure established by Allah for the manifestation of the outcomes of evil deeds is that, firstly, these effects keep manifesting imperceptibly, and then after a period of time they materialize in a tangible form. This is called the period of respite, or the law of gradual effects. It is stated in Surah Zumar that at this point in time these people are making merry, and jesting with the laws of Allah by living life according to their desires, but after a very short period, whatever they are doing, its consequences will emerge and appear before them, and that law of requital which they are mocking will engulf them from every direction. 39:48. The Quran has used a very meaningful term for the interval between a deed and the materializing of its effect. It is a fact that a deed is committed first and its outcome appears in front of us afterwards. The Quran explains this as man sending this outcome on ahead before his own departure. It goes forward and waits for him, and when after this he reaches there, he finds it standing before him. The expression of the Quran for this is, whatever their hands send forward for them. 3:182. 5.5. Whatever their hands send forward. It is stated in Surah Al-Imran that whatever crimes these people are committing currently, we are continually writing these down one by one. When they advance forward in the journey of life, then their outcomes will appear before them. At that time it will be said to them that these outcomes, hardships, have not dropped down out of the blue, these are those same ones which you had sent forward in advance. 3:182. These have come on ahead, and you have followed on behind them. At another place these have been termed as ma'aslafati. That is, those which have passed by on this path before you. 10:30. It is stated in Surah Al-Hajj that the outcome of the wrong path of these people will be that they will be humiliated in the world and will also be ruined and destroyed in the hereafter. And when this will be their condition, they will be told, this is but all that which you had sent forward for yourself. 22:10. In Surah Al-Qasas it is stated about Bani Israel that when some trouble visits them, which they have previously sent forward for themselves by their own hands, then they begin to shriek and wail. 28:47. See also, 4:62. It is stated in Surah Rum that the condition of people is such that when they acquire successes and bounties, they are puffed up in pride about them, and when they have to face hardships, then they become extremely hopeless and sorrowful, even though they had previously sent forward these troubles for themselves through their own hands. 30:36. It is stated in Surah Al-Fajr that when man will see this destruction in front of him, which will be deadly, he will call out in extreme despair and regret that, alas, would that I had sent something forward for my life. 89:24. Not only troubles and hardships, but also whatever bounties of life man acquires, he has sent these forward previously for himself. In Surah Al-Muzammil it is stated, whatever bounties you will send forward in advance for yourselves, you will find these present with Allah. 73:20. In the verses mentioned above, it is stated, whatever your hands have already sent forward. At some places it is stated, whatever their self has sent forward for them. 5:80. The Quran declares the self, which is the fountainhead of his choice and intent, to be responsible for human deeds. That is why it declares that it is his self which will be held accountable for the outcome of his deeds. Thus it has stated, the human self should look to see what it has sent forward for its tomorrow. 59:18. In connection with the manifestation of outcomes it is stated that, at that time every self will find out all that it has sent forward and all that it has left behind. 82:5. This is because all this was documented in his scroll of deeds. It is stated in Surah Yasin that those footprints which these people leave behind them in the journey of life, and whatever they send forward, we keep on recording all of these, 36:12. And the entry of each item keeps taking place in a clear scroll, which continues to journey ahead of them. 36:12. It is evident from these explanations that according to the Quran, whatever trouble descends on man, it is the consequence of his own deeds, individual or collective. In connection with the destruction of Bani Israel, it is stated in Surah Al-Baqarah that their destruction was the consequence of their own deeds, 2:79. They were destroyed because they were unjust and rebellious, 2:59. They were seized in the punishment of ruin and disgrace because they had adopted transgression against the laws of Allah, 2:61, 3:112. 5.6. Humiliation and disgrace. And this is not just specific to Bani Israel, this is the universal law of Allah that humiliation and disgrace is the outcome of the evil deeds of man himself. The situation of each one of those nations whose state is such that it accepts one part of the code of laws, of Allah, and rejects the other part, is that it becomes humiliated and disgraced in the world, and on the day of judgment an even more severe punishment will be imposed on it, 2:85, see also, 2:114, 22:910. In Surah Al-Fajr this reality is presented in a very appealing style. It is stated that when man is humiliated and disgraced, then he complains that my Rabb has humiliated and ruined me for no reason, 89:16. In response it was instructed to inform them that this is not correct, Allah does not disgrace anyone for no reason. You became humiliated due to the outcome of your evil deeds. Your condition was such that you did not respect those people who were left abandoned in society, nor did you make any arrangements to cater for the needs of those people whose running businesses used to cease, nor did you ask others to do this. Whatever you used to inherit from your forefathers, you would become the sole master of it. You had established an economic system such that in it the greater capital drew the smaller capital towards itself. This was your mentality, and this was your system, the outcome of which is this humiliation and disgrace. And despite this, you complain that Allah has disgraced you unjustly and without legitimate cause. Allah does not disgrace anyone without legitimate cause, 89:1720. See also, 92:4-10. Allah does not disgrace anyone without haqq, this is because to disgrace someone without legitimate cause is zulm, injustice, and Allah never does zulm to anyone. The Quran has made this reality clear at numerous places. 5.7. Allah does not do zulm to anyone. It is stated in Surah Al-Imran that the fields of those people who do zulm to others can never flourish, they become ruined and destroyed. And after that it is stated, Allah does not do zulm to them, they do zulm to their own selves. 3:117. After mentioning the destructions of various former nations, it is stated in Surah At-Tawbah that these destructions and devastations of theirs did not take place because Allah did zulm to them without cause. These happened because they did zulm to their own selves and committed excesses. 9:70, see also, 11:101, 1633, 29:40. We are told in Surah Yunus that Allah does not do even the slightest injustice to human beings. Men do injustice to their own selves, the consequence of which is their ruin and destruction. 10:44. Allah is the possessor of infinite powers and human beings are His created servants who have no status before Him, hence this thought should not even enter the mind that He will do injustice and wrong to His weak and feeble creation. The hardships and destructions which afflict people are brought about through their own hands. Allah never does injustice to His servants, 22:10. Leaving aside doing injustice to His servants, He never even forms the intention for it, 40:31. He tells us to simply reflect a little. If you acknowledge the truth of the laws of Allah, and after accepting them from your heart act according to them, then what would Allah gain by inflicting a punishment on you? 4:147. The psyche of Allah is not that of, Allah forbid, sadists, who obtain mental pleasure from tormenting others unjustly and causing them suffering. Therefore do not even let this thought cross your mind that Allah causes pain to reach anyone without any cause. Troubles descend on men due to their own wrong paths, this is called doing injustice to their own selves. The Quran states, "With Allah everything is decided according to haqq and justice, and no kind of wrong or injustice is done to anyone. Every self will be paid the full recompense for its deeds." 39:69-70. In relation to the manifestation of the outcomes of human deeds, it is stated, "On that day everyone will be given full recompense for his deeds, on that day no one will be treated unjustly." 40:17. Their decision will be done according to justice and fairness, and no injustice will be done to anyone. 1054. 5.8. 2 verses of Surah An-Nisa. In connection with this, 2 verses of Surah An-Nisa are very profound and merit great attention. Referring to the distorted mentality of one group during the era of Rasulullah, it is stated that their condition is such that when some good reaches them, they declare that they received this from Allah, and when some trouble reaches them, they say to Rasulullah that this is all because of you. 4:78. It is announced, "Say to them that this kind of differentiation and categorization is not correct. Good and troubles all are from Allah." 4:78. After that it is stated that what has happened to these people, that they do not even try to understand the matter, and keep uttering whatever comes to their mind. 4:78. After that they are informed about the matter, to remember, whatever trouble comes to you it is brought about by your own self, and whatever bounties you acquire, these are from the direction of Allah. 4:79. There seems to be an apparent contradiction between these 2 verses. In the first verse it is stated that good and troubles are all from Allah, and in the second verse it is stated that good is from Allah, and troubles are brought about by your own selves. What does this mean? What is detailed here is that 1. Whatever events occur, whether these are easy or difficult, pleasant or unpleasant, all take place according to the laws of Allah. 2. The law of Allah is that if you live according to them, the laws of Allah, then its outcome will be good, prosperities. 3. And if, in opposition to them, you live according to your own decisions, then its outcome will be troubles and hardships. In other words, in this arena of efforts and deeds, all outcomes are established according to the law of requital of Allah. From this respect, all of these are from the direction of Allah. Now as far as the distinction between pleasant and unpleasant outcomes is concerned, the principle for this is that whatever deeds are carried out according to the laws of Allah, their result is pleasant, this is called from the direction of Allah, and those deeds which man carries out against them according to his own choice, their outcome is unpleasant, this is called from his own self. From this a supreme reality appears before us that it is only good that is always received from the direction of Allah. Troubles and hardships, called shar, come at man's own invitation. Details of this point will be found a little later, under the topic of care, good, and shar. In light of these explanations, 2 fundamental issues come before us. 5.9. False concepts. When we remark, on experiencing some unexpected trouble or an unpleasant event, that what can be done, it was simply the will of Allah that it should be like this, or that this is simply what Allah had willed, to allege this is not only contrary to reality but is a very great accusation against Allah Himself. The meaning of this is simply what Allah had willed is that whatever has occurred, we are neither responsible for it, we had made every effort that this should not happen, but despite this, Allah did this, nor can we comprehend any rational cause for it. This is why it is said that we can do nothing against the will of Allah. He is omnipotent, He can do whatever He wishes. Why He does this is a matter that cannot be comprehended by anyone, only He is cognizant with the hikmat, wisdom, of this. Only Allah can understand His own matters. Have you observed what kind of concept of Allah appears before us from this, such an Allah with whom there is neither any procedure or law, nor accountability or book, no justice or fairness. He does whatever comes to his mind. He makes people suffer in unjustified hardships and difficulties. Why he does this, neither its cause can be comprehended by anyone, nor can anyone inquire about it from him. And the second point is that nothing takes effect through the planning and organization of man, his hard work and effort, his toil and endeavor, only that takes place which is the will of Allah. From this man becomes relegated to a mere constrained creation. Details will be written about this point later. 5.10 It all happened by chance. There is no doubt that 1. Many such events occur whose cause we cannot comprehend. We call it chance, and fall silent. 2. An individual can also become a victim of those troubles and hardships for which he himself is not responsible. Rather, what happens is that according to the law of Allah, the outcome of his deeds should be something else, i.e. pleasant, but what transpires is the opposite, unpleasant. For example, the one who lives life according to the principles of honesty and integrity in a corrupt society keeps falling victim to all kinds of afflictions, even though according to the law of Allah the outcome of balanced deeds should be bountiful. As far as the first point, chance, is concerned, in this universe which is functioning under the immutable system of the law of cause and effect, no such event can take place which has no cause. But discovering the causes is dependent on human knowledge and research. In his age of infancy, man was not cognizant of the underlying cause of any event, so he attributed every event to chance. As his knowledge increased, the veils covering the secrets of nature kept being lifted up and the causes of events and incidents began to appear before him. Hundreds of events, incidents, even diseases are such that they were previously declared as being merely the outcome of chance, but now they come within the sphere of the law of cause and effect. Even now the situation is such that primitive tribes in Africa, America, or Australia etc. attribute to goddesses and gods those events for which they cannot comprehend any cause. In the civilized world, where new discoveries of science keep on becoming the trigger for uncovering the secrets of nature, no difficulty arises in comprehending the causes of these events. To such an extent that certain matters whose causes we did not comprehend in our childhood are now viewed by our children as common knowledge in daily life. And they are well acquainted with how these occur. And this issue is not just confined to ancient primitive tribes, even within a civilized country in the present day. Those people who are used to living life in the darknesses of superstitions created by religion become contented with calling these incidents divine glory. Regarding whose causes and effects even the children from educated households are well aware of. Those diseases for which they still resort to amulets and the lighting of candles on graves, these children go directly to the physician and obtain a remedy for them. Thus we attribute to chance those incidents whose cause and effect is not known to us. In our own era there are still such areas in which information has not been able to be acquired about the causes and effects of these events, despite the fact that man has unearthed a great deal of information relating to numerous hidden and undiscovered matters about the functioning of the universe. As our knowledge about the universe will keep on advancing, the causes and effects of these events will also come within the domain of our knowledge, and in this way, ultimately, no event in nature will remain a secret. When the Quran had stated in relation to Adam, man, that Allah had placed the potential to gain knowledge of the things of the universe within Adam, then together with this, by stating Kullaha 231, it was also clarified that there will be nothing among these things about which he will not be able to gain knowledge. Chance is the name for a deficit in our knowledge, otherwise there is no event in the universe which materializes by chance. 5.11 The condition of individuals in a corrupt society. Now let us come to the second point. That an individual also becomes the victim of those hardships which are not the consequence of his own deeds. In connection with this it should be understood that when man lives life in a certain society, then he becomes a part of that society. when a society is treading on the correct path. All the people in this society benefit from its pleasant outcomes, even those people who have not personally participated in the toil and hard work reap these bounties. For example, if there are bountiful crops and an abundant harvest due to the correct efforts of some society, then those members of this society who have not even glimpsed these fields of crops also become prosperous. According to this same principle, the destructive effects of the society which adopts the wrong path also have to be faced by those individuals who are not directly associated with this wrong path, and have not played any role in it. When a dam in a river bursts, even though those directly responsible are the government officials who hold the reins of power to plan and administrate, its destructive effects also have to be faced by those people in the village who have no knowledge whatsoever about how that dam burst. These are those collective dangers about which the Quran has warned that make an effort to keep your society secure from such a danger which, when it comes, then not only are those people engulfed in it who are directly responsible for the corruptions and destructions, each and every one sinks into its folds. 825. But man is a strange being. When bounties and prosperities are accessible to an individual due to the good management of the collective system of a society, he will never comment regarding these that I did not make any effort to acquire them, hence I have no right to them. These should only go to those who have toiled for them. He benefits from all of these and in such a way as if it is his right. And he does not even consider it necessary to extend gratitude to those people through whose rational planning, or from whose labor and effort these conveniences have become available. But if a hardship arrives due to some flaw in society, then he starts to wail that I am not responsible for this failing, hence why should I endure this hardship? This is an injustice against me, a wrong against me. He creates an uproar that those people who are responsible for the collective organization and management of society should be held accountable. These hardships should be borne by them. Why are we made the target of these? Referring to this mentality of man, the Quran states, when the circumstances of man are favorable and the bounties of life are available to him, he transgresses and turns his face away with pride and arrogance from the laws of Allah, but when trouble visits him, then despairing, he begins to raise a hue and cry. 17:83. After that it is stated, say to them, every individual in a society remains busily engaged within his own area of responsibility, shakalates, hence, he is indirectly included in the beneficial and harmful consequences of the actions of collective life, that is, he is responsible for these. 17:84. 5.12 Exchanges between leaders and populace in Jahannam. The Quran has described this reality in a very vivid way when it states that the leaders and the populace will mutually wrangle in Jahannam, and will hurl accusations at each other that it is you who are responsible for these troubles and miseries. It is stated in Surah Saba. If you bring this scene to mind, when these people who had adopted a path of crime will be standing in the presence of Allah, and will be leveling accusations about their wrong path at each other, the populace will say to their leaders that if you had not misguided us, then we would most certainly have accepted Iman in the laws of Allah. The leaders will reply, why do you denounce us? When the straight path had appeared before you, then was it us who prevented you from adopting it? You yourselves wished to commit crimes, now you are putting the blame on us for nothing. Their followers will retaliate that you used to play such tricks day and night, and used to keep laying down nets of intrigues due to which we simply could not come to the straight path. What? Even after this do you have the temerity to claim that you did not mislead us? 34, 31, 33. But no excuse of theirs will be considered worthy of acceptance, and they will all be included in this azab, punishment, equally, they will all have to endure it together. 37-33, the officials of the system for their wrong practices, and the populace because they were the very source of that power of these elites on the basis of which they directed society along an evil path. This is the connection between an individual and society within collective life according to the Quran. Society is simply the term for a collection of individuals, it does not drop down ready-made from above, if the populace do not wish to tread on the wrong path. Then they should rise up and change that system which does not permit the society to tread on the right path. Have you observed that the Quran does not consider this excuse of the populace as worthy of acceptance? That we were weak, indeed constrained, hence do not involve us in this punishment, for man, as possessor of choice and intent, to call himself constrained is in fact the greatest crime in itself, that crime for which Iblis became declared as rejected for all times from the lofty avenues of life. Therefore, to declare oneself as being constrained and to espouse a path of escapism from one's own responsibilities is a degradation of human eminence. It is quite possible that weak human beings, that is, those who have no means of power, are unsuccessful in their initial efforts to change the wrong path of a society. But remaining unsuccessful in this endeavor is one thing, and declaring oneself to be constrained and surrendering before it and not even making any effort to change it is another matter. In the divine balance, the former endeavor is deserving of immense appreciation and admiration. 2:157, while the second option is a cause for consignment to the fire of hell, 4:97. 5.13 Our initial era. This is the correct position of hardships and troubles in civic life according to the Quran. As long as this teaching of the Quran remained before the Muslims, at the time of every collective hardship they used to pause and reflect, and analyze this issue to determine what is the cause for this hardship. If they observed that the cause of this problem is some flaw in organization and management, then the populace would warn those who were at the helm of affairs and immediately turn their attention towards rectifying it. If it was the direct consequence of the laxity or carelessness of the citizens, then they themselves would make an effort to rectify it and reform themselves. None among them attributed it to Allah in order to seek a route of escape, nor by calling it his taqdeer did he sit down weeping and doing nothing. 5.14 A later conspiracy. But later on, when those at the helm of affairs adopted paths of tyranny, and as a result societal hardships and troubles arose like a flood, they became apprehensive that if the populace come to know that we are responsible for this, then they will rise up against us. So, in order to save themselves from this danger, they thought to direct the attention of the populace towards something else. However, doing this alone was not within their power. For this they got the religious clergy on their side. No pharaoh can proclaim himself to be a supreme rab without Haman, 79:24, and they responded that this is not at all difficult, just watch. Consequently, the clerics began to address the people with this sermon that not even a leaf in the world can move without the command of Allah. These people who have set themselves up as your rulers, what authority did they have that they should become rulers? It is Allah who has made them rulers. Then whatever they do, how could they have had the authority to do whatever they willed either? This is also taking place according to the command of Allah. If this had not been the will of Allah, then how could they have adopted such a path? So, leaving aside speaking out against their tyranny, you should not even allow an iota of a complaint to arise in your hearts. If you do allow this, then it will mean that you are complaining against the mashiat of Allah and against His will. This is kafir, it is alhad, it is irtidad, repent, and seek forgiveness thousands of times. And it was the result of these sermons that this dogma became entrenched among us, that every trouble which visits us is according to the will of Allah. Man should do sabr and shukr on this. Remember that whatever trouble visits you, it is brought about by your own hands. 42:30. Sometimes it comes individually, like putting your finger into fire yourself, and sometimes collectively, like the destructions arising from flooding due to the dam of a river bursting, or the stresses faced in a corrupt society at every step by those who are living an honest life according to principles. 5.15 Why do worries accost people living honest lives? This last point, that is, the worries of those who live honest lives, requires further elaboration. It is stated in Surah Al-Ma'idah, O members of Jamaat-e-Mu'minin, take care of yourself. Only you can do it, no one else can do this. Remember, if, by taking care of yourself, you remain treading on the right path, then those who are treading on the wrong path will not be able to cause you the least harm. 5:105. This verse conveys great realities. It is noted here that if you keep treading on the correct path, then those treading on the wrong path will not be able to do you any kind of harm. But our observation goes against this. We regularly witness that an individual who wishes to live a life of honesty and integrity suffers a loss every other day. Dishonest businesses scheme against an honest businessman in such a way that he faces the loss of all his assets. The colleagues and staff of an honest and conscientious officer instigate such intrigues against him that his life becomes a living hell. These kinds of examples are to be found in every sphere of society. Then how did the Quran declare that those who are treading on the wrong path cannot harm the individual who adopts the right path? This issue merits some deeper reflection and reasoning. 5.16 Benefit and loss in physical life. As has been previously described, on reaching the human form, life divides into two levels. One is that same animalistic level which is continuing from the past. This is called physical life. This life remains under the obedience of physical laws, and in this there is no differentiation or distinction between good and evil, so much so that not even between a mu'min and a kafir. Whether a good person puts his hand into fire, or an evil person, it will affect both equally. Whether poison is ingested by a kafir or a mu'min, both will die. In this life, losses also occur according to physical laws, and profit is also acquired according to these laws. Whichever individual tills his land according to the laws of agriculture and makes efforts, his crop will be bountiful. The one who tends it with indifference, his crop will be poor. It is stated in Surah Bani Israel. Our law is that whoever desires immediate benefits in this world and makes an effort for these according to the physical laws, we give those material benefits to him according to our law of Mashiat, which we have made through our choice and intent. But in the life of the future, there is the destruction of hell for him which he is made to enter, ruined and disgraced. Contrary to this, the individual who desires the bounties of the future along with immediate benefits, and makes such efforts for them which should be undertaken as per haqq, and has conviction in the permanent values, these are the people whose endeavors will bear full fruition in both the present as well as in the future. In this way, we cause both these groups to advance according to our laws in proportion to their efforts, that is, those who only desire immediate benefits, and those who desire both immediate benefits and the bounties of the future. And the bounties of your Rabb are kept available for all of them equally. We do not place any obstacle for anyone in their path, so that one group should advance while the other group is stopped right there. 17:18-20. This means that any individual can acquire the means of sustenance which is acquired via physical laws, who makes an effort to acquire it through these laws. In this race in life, the arena is kept open for both kafir and mu'min equally. It never happens that a kafir is grabbed and pushed back despite his efforts, and that a mu'min is advanced forward even if he does not make any effort for it. At another place it is stated, "For the individual who desires the bounties of the future, we make additions in it according to his efforts. And for the individual who merely desires worldly benefits, he receives those benefits in proportion to his efforts, but there is no share in the bounties of the future for him." 42:20. This is the law of Allah relating to physical life. Since at this stage life is at the animalistic level, there is no question of any kind of distinction in it of good and evil. Among animals there is none who is good or bad, kafir or mu'min. 5.17 The benefit and loss at the other level of life. The other level of life, which we call human life for the purpose of identification, is higher than animalistic life. In this ethical values are applicable. Whichever individual lives his life according to these values, his self keeps on developing. Whichever one goes against them, the development of his self halts. This is termed the life of the future, or the life of the hereafter. But at this level of life, animalistic life does not end, that too remains in existence, and its requirements are also alive in the same way. From this it is clear that a double set of laws is applicable to human life. One is the physical laws and the other is the laws about the permanent values. The correct life, which is called an Islamic life or the life of a momin, is that in which the requirements of the human body and itself are both continually fulfilled in a balanced and harmonious way. In a correct society, Islamic, there is no conflict between these two. But in a wrong society, non-Islamic, there is a confrontation between these two at every step. That is, in this society, on one side there is an individual who desires the preservation of the permanent values, honesty, integrity, righteousness, and confronting him is another individual, or group of people, who have no regard for these values. They are only desirous of material benefits, no matter how these may be obtained. When there is a clash between the interests of these two, then it is obvious that compared to an individual who will not hesitate to use every kind of method to obtain these, that individual will remain unsuccessful who, before lifting his hand, will reflect whether the permanent values permit this or not. Now there are two paths before this individual from which he can choose whichever one he wants. Either he also resorts to every trick by ignoring obedience to values, and thus competes with the opposing party by standing equally on the same level. Though he will achieve material benefits from this, there will be a loss to his self, or by preferring the interest of his self, he does not relinquish his principles. In this way, though he will have to suffer a material loss, there will be no loss caused to his self. Hence, when the Quran declared that, "Guard yourselves, if you follow right guidance, no hurt can come to you from those who stray," 5:105. Its meaning was that if you guard yourself, then the individual who is treading on the wrong path, may possibly cause you material loss, but will not be able to cause you any loss to yourself. The destination of you all is to Allah, it is He that will show you the truth of all that you do. 5:105. Benefit and loss to the human self cannot be estimated using material scales, they are measured by divine scales. Therefore their precise and correct estimate will take place when they will be weighed on the scales of the law of requital. 5.18 The importance of material benefits. But the Quran does not ignore the demands of physical life, that is, material benefits. It accords great significance to them. This is why it declares the life of a momin as he achieves both the bounties of the world and also the prosperities of the future. 2:201. Now the question which arises is, how can this aim be achieved? In other words, that man should keep achieving material benefits and should also not let go of his hold on the permanent values. The whole teaching of the Quran is for the completion of this program. The mutual confrontation between a man of principle, a momin individual, and a materialistic person, only desiring immediate benefits, who is called a kafir, is defined as the mutual tussle between haqq and batil. In this tussle the man of principle suffers defeat, because in an evil society those people who follow batil have acquired the form of a united front, and men of principle live their life separately at an individual level. According to the Quran, this behavior of men of principle, that is, an individualistic way of thinking which is called tasawwuf or monasticism, is wrong. According to the Quran, correct Islamic life is that these followers of haqq should live life by coming together as a jamaat, and in this way, by being united, oppose the batil front. It is obvious that great difficulties will need to be faced in this confrontation. The group following batil will not give up its interests easily, it will use every tactic to preserve them. 5.19 Confrontation between haqq and batil. These are those verses about this confrontation and clash between haqq and batil which the Quran has mentioned at various places. This is called the campaign for jihad. In Surah Al-Baqarah it is stated, "Or do you think that you will enter paradise just like that? It will never happen like this. You will also have to pass through those life-threatening phases through which those peoples passed who clashed with the forces of batil before this." In this confrontation the condition would become such that hardships and troubles encircled them from all directions. Their hearts quaked at their severity, to such a degree that they and their messenger would cry out aloud, "O Allah! When will the time come for the fruition of our endeavors?" After such courage and patience testing stages, eventually their efforts used to succeed, and divine aid used to make their efforts and striving bear fruit. Remember, you will also have to go through these very stages. 2:214. The degree of intensity that this confrontation had acquired in the Battle of Ahzab has been outlined by the Quran in these words. That was such a severe time for you when the army of the enemy had encircled you from all directions. Due to fear, darkness was before your eyes, and due to fright, your hearts were pounding as if they will burst from your chests and reach your throats, and, in the hearts of those among you whose iman was weak, all kinds of misgivings about the promises of Allah were arising. At the time of such an earth-shaking affliction, the true motivation of the Mu'mineen emerged before them, and those observing could see with what steadfastness they confront challenges. 33:10-11. These are those confrontations in which there is the possibility and expectation of all kinds of physical losses. In this sometimes there will be the fear of war and killing, and other dangers, sometimes there will be scarcity of the means of food and drink, sometimes there will be the loss of possessions and life, sometimes fields and orchards will be destroyed. All this will occur, but after this glad tidings of victory and success will be for those who remain steadfast in this struggle and endeavor, and during this horde of troubles and hardships, whose gazes do not divert even the slightest from this focus that our aim is to defeat the forces of Batil in order to establish the system of Haqq. We have dedicated ourselves for this. Let hardships come, our every step will be lifted towards this very aim. That is our objective and ultimate target, and we will advance towards it in every eventuality. 2:155-156. For this confrontation there will be a massive need for material means and wherewithal, along with personal traits of patience and determination. That is why it is instructed that you should keep the means of defense for your frontiers in readiness to the best of your ability. 8:60. If any weakness remains in the tactics of war in the battlefield, then the Jamaat-e-Mu'mineen will have to suffer its consequences in the same way that the opponents have to bear a loss in similar circumstances. Hence in the Battle of Uhud, due to one mistake in the battle tactics, the victory of the Jamaat-e-Mu'mineen turned into a defeat, and they had to bear a severe loss as a result, to the point that, according to the historical account, Rasool himself became wounded in this, and his companions provided him with protection with great valor and sacrifice. These are those places where the Jamaat-e-Mu'mineen are provided with reassurance by stating that, if you have had to face hardships, then there is nothing to be perturbed about in this. The opposing party also had to bear similar losses. 4:104. This revolving of events and incidents continues like this in all eras, and all human beings can fall into its folds. Sometimes the scale is heavier on one side, sometimes on the other side. 3:140. Hence there is never any reason to be perturbed in times of difficulties. These should be faced resolutely. In these confrontations, if the contingent of those who are following Haqq keeps confronting the opponents resolutely and steadfastly with the necessary resources and means, then ultimately success will be theirs alone, and in this way, the establishment of that society takes place in which no material loss is incurred from following the permanent values. This is the system in which, if you keep following the correct path, then the one treading on the wrong path will not be able to cause you any loss. 5:105. According to this there will neither be a material loss, nor a loss to the human self, and this will be called good in this world and good in the hereafter. 2:201. Material prosperities in this life and eminence of the human self in the life of the hereafter, this is the supreme level of achievement. In this endeavor and struggle, only the hardships and troubles of this life fall into the share of those people who lay down their life before the establishment of the system, but their life in the hereafter becomes so beautiful that every living person is highly envious of this kind of death. They are the ones who are described as having laid down their lives in the path of Allah, and those who are living are told not to consider them dead. They have been taken into the lap of a life of eternity. 2:154. But this success is only achieved through one's own effort and action, and this effort and action only bears fruit within the context of a collective way of life. This is called national life or the life of the Ummah. For this, see the next chapter.